This video is about becoming the person you're afraid to be by facing your shadow. Be honest, are you stuck repeating the same patterns? People-pleasing, self-sabotage, anger you can't explain, no matter how hard you try? If you watch till the end, I'll show you a simple, grounded path to identify your shadow, integrate it, and start living as your whole self, without the constant inner war. Stay with me. Have you ever sensed a quiet unease in the late hours, as if something stirs within your mind? We build a persona for the world, but in doing so, cast a shadow, hiding our fears, desires, and impulses. This shadow is not just flaws, but a source of untapped energy and wisdom. Jung saw the shadow as essential, urging us to confront what we fear within ourselves. The shadow, ignored, finds ways to surface, through dreams, outbursts, and the anxieties we try to suppress. From birth, we learn to adapt, shaping a mask, the persona, for acceptance. The danger comes when we mistake this mask for our true self, banishing anything that doesn't fit. Repressed emotions gather in the shadow, making the mask heavier and our reactions unpredictable. The more perfect the mask, the darker the shadow it casts. What we deny in ourselves often erupts or is projected onto others, turning the mask into a prison. The shadow calls for integration, often through crisis or discomfort. It appears in dreams, projections, and the sense that something is missing from our lives. Ignoring this call leads to fragmentation and alienation from ourselves. Jung's own journey showed that facing the shadow is not madness, but a path to wholeness. Embracing the shadow means reclaiming lost power and moving toward authenticity. Accepting the shadow is humbling. It means seeing our own darkness and not turning away. Integration isn't unleashing impulses, but bringing them to awareness and choosing how to act. This is the path to individuation, becoming whole, not perfect. By embracing the shadow, we reclaim vitality, creativity, and compassion. The goal is not to eliminate the shadow, but to integrate it, standing whole with both light and darkness. The journey begins with a subtle crack, a moment when the mask slips and the shadow emerges. We try to dismiss these moments, but they plant seeds of doubt and vulnerability. The ego resists, fearing loss of control, but the tremor signals a call to wholeness. The path forward is to listen, not suppress, and to see the disturbance as a guide. The journey starts with the courage to face discomfort and wonder what lies beyond the crack. The world becomes a hall of mirrors, reflecting back the qualities we disown in ourselves. We project our shadows onto others, seeing in them what we deny in us. To navigate this, ask, what in this person is also in me? As we reclaim our projections, the reflections become clearer and we see ourselves. Denial is not passive. It's a constant, exhausting effort, like holding a beach ball underwater. The more we repress our shadow, the heavier life feels. True relief comes not from more denial, but from facing what we hide. The weight we carry is not the shadow itself, but the struggle to keep it buried. The shadow is the uninvited guest, appearing in times of crisis, when life's structures crumble and our defenses are down. It slips through the cracks, confronting us with unfamiliar feelings and desires. Jung believed this eruption is a call to wholeness, a chance to rebuild stronger and more authentic than before. The shadow's arrival is an invitation, disguised as catastrophe. To face the shadow is an act of courage. It's not a battle, but a meeting with yourself. It means looking at what you'd rather not see and feeling what you'd rather not feel. The hero's journey is not to slay a dragon outside, but to meet the one within. The only weapon you need is honesty. Each time you look at your shadow, you bring it into the light. And in doing so, you welcome a hidden part of yourself home. The moment you acknowledge the shadow, the struggle begins. This is not a distant battle, but an intimate dance within your soul. The ego clings to control, resisting the shadow's truth. Yet the shadow seeks not to conquer, but to be known. Its power is the reality of your complete nature. The dance is not to be won, but to unite both sides until they move as one. The struggle within is a direct assault on the mask you have worn for so long. The persona, once a source of comfort, now feels like a suffocating cage. The shadow's emergence exposes its limitations and falsehoods. You begin to claw at the mask, desperate to breathe. Each act of authenticity loosens its hold. It is both terrifying and liberating, destroying your image but finally letting your true self emerge. We all build an internal statue, a monument to our ego carved from our ideals. But when the shadow emerges, it cracks this image, revealing flaws beneath the marble. The crumbling is painful but necessary. From the ruins, a more authentic, resilient self can be built, one that embraces both light and shadow. In the heart of struggle, a powerful inner voice emerges, the voice of the accuser. It is the inner critic, seizing on every flaw and dark impulse, condemning you. It tells you that you are unworthy, monstrous, beyond redemption. To move forward, you must discern the shadow's message from the accuser's judgment. Remember, your flaws are only a part of you, not the whole. Self-compassion is the antidote to the accuser's poison. With gentle awareness, the accuser's voice loses its sting. If this episode is stirring things you've kept buried, don't carry it alone. A good therapist helps you face the shadow without being swallowed by it. I've linked online therapy in the description. Use code therapy20 for 20% off your first month. If you're ready to do the work, start there. As you persist in the struggle, refusing to be defeated by the accuser's voice, you begin to make a startling discovery. Buried within the very shadow material you found so shameful and frightening, there is something of immense value. Jung called this finding the gold in the darkness. The shadow is not just a bag of faults. It is a treasure chest containing all the parts of yourself that you had to sacrifice in order to be good or acceptable. It holds your repressed creativity, your untamed passion, your righteous anger, your instinctual wisdom, and your deepest connection to life. This discovery, well, it changes the nature of the struggle. It is no longer just a grim duty to confront your flaws. It becomes an exciting and life-giving quest to reclaim your lost treasures. You might find that the selfishness you so despised was actually the key to setting healthy boundaries and honoring your own needs. The aggression you repressed might, when consciously integrated, become the assertive energy you need to pursue your goals and protect what you love. The dreaminess you were taught to see as lazy might be the source of your greatest artistic visions. What part of yourself are you most afraid to show, and why now? Drop one honest comment below. It could motivate someone reading it. The shadow holds the raw power that your polite persona lacks. This is the point where fear begins to transform into curiosity. You start to approach your shadow not as a monster to be slain, but as a mysterious and powerful ally to be understood. You learn to ask different questions. Instead of, "Why do I have this terrible anger?" you ask, "What is this anger trying to protect? What power does it hold?" You begin to see that every aspect of the shadow has a dual nature. What appears as a vice in its repressed unconscious form can become a virtue when brought into the light of awareness and consciously integrated. Your greatest weaknesses contain the seeds of your greatest strengths. This gold is the source of revitalization. As you reclaim these lost parts of yourself, you feel a surge of new energy and vitality. Life begins to feel more colorful, more authentic, more exciting. The flatness and fatigue that came from repression begin to recede, replaced by a sense of purpose and passion. You are no longer living only half a life. You are drawing power and wisdom from the full spectrum of your being. The struggle is still difficult, but it is now imbued with a sense of profound meaning. You are not just wrestling with a demon, you are mining for the gold that will make you whole. If this is the work you're doing, subscribe so you don't have to do it alone. The struggle within is not a war that ends in unconditional surrender. It resolves through negotiation. Once you have found the gold in the darkness, you realize that the shadow is not an enemy to be vanquished. It is a powerful, autonomous part of your psyche with its own needs and its own wisdom. The goal becomes to build a relationship with it, to create a dialogue between the ego and the shadow. This is the negotiation of the soul, a process of listening, compromising, and finding a way for these two powerful forces to coexist and cooperate within you. This negotiation takes place in the theatre of the inner world. It can happen through journaling, where you allow the voice of the shadow to speak on the page. It can happen through active imagination, a Jungian technique where you consciously enter a dreamlike state to converse with the figures of your unconscious. You might ask the shadow what it wants, what it needs, why it has appeared in this way. And then you must learn to listen to the answer, which may come not in words, but in images, feelings and bodily sensations. It is about treating the shadow with respect as a valid part of yourself. In this negotiation, the ego must learn humility. It must be willing to relinquish its absolute control and make space for the shadow's perspective. It may have to accept that its carefully laid plans need to be modified by instinctual wisdom. It may have to learn to express anger in a healthy way rather than repressing it entirely. The shadow, in turn, must learn to be civilized. Its raw energy needs to be channeled and directed by the conscious mind. Raw rage, for example, is destructive. But when negotiated with the ego, it can be transformed into focused, passionate action for justice. The ego provides the structure, the shadow provides the energy. This negotiation is a lifelong process. It is the art of self-regulation. It is the continuous balancing act of honoring your instinctual nature without being consumed by it and using your conscious will without becoming a rigid tyrant. The struggle gives way to a dynamic partnership. There will still be moments of conflict, times when the ego and the shadow disagree, but the relationship is no longer one of war. It is one of mutual respect and creative tension. This inner dialogue is what allows you to become a truly integrated individual, capable of acting with both consciousness and vitality, with both reason and soul. The final phase of the struggle is a test of fire. It is when you must take the new, more integrated self that you have forged in private and live it out in the public world. It is one thing to have faced your shadow in the quiet of your own mind or the safety of a therapist's office. It is another thing entirely to embody this wholeness in your relationships, your work, and your community. This is where the inner negotiation meets the outer reality. It is the moment you stop just tearing at the mask and begin to live consciously and courageously without it. This test brings with it a new set of challenges. You will be misunderstood. People who are comfortable with your old persona may be confused or threatened by your new authenticity. They may accuse you of being selfish for setting boundaries or difficult for speaking your truth. You will be tempted to retreat to the old, familiar ways of being, to put the mask back on, just to keep the peace. The test is to hold steady, to remain true to your own integrated nature, even in the face of external pressure and disapproval. It is to trust the wholeness you have fought so hard to achieve. This is also a test of discernment. Integrating your shadow does not mean you have a license to act out every impulse. It means you now have a choice. The test of fire is to wisely exercise that choice. You have acknowledged your anger, but when is it right to express it? And when is it better to hold it in compassionate silence? You have reclaimed your ambition, but how do you pursue it without harming others? This is the ethical dimension of shadow work. It is the challenge of wielding your newfound power and vitality with consciousness, love, and wisdom. It is the difference between being whole and simply being wild. Passing through this fire is what solidifies the transformation. Each time you act from a place of wholeness, despite the fear, you strengthen the new connections within your psyche. You prove to yourself that it is possible to be both light and dark, strong and vulnerable, conscious and instinctual. The struggle does not cease, but it changes its character. It is no longer a desperate internal war. It becomes the ongoing creative challenge of living an authentic and fully human life. You emerge from the fire not unscarred, but tempered. You are no longer a brittle statue, but a being of forged metal, resilient and whole, ready for the next stage of the journey. After the fire and fury, a quietness descends, not empty, but resonant. This is the first glimmer of dawn after the long night of the soul. The fragments of the self, so long at war, begin to drift together. The light that dawns is gentle, illuminating both rough and smooth, dark and light. The first glimmer of dawn is the promise that wholeness is possible. Transformation is not achieved through willpower or force. It is an act of alchemy that occurs only in the vessel of acceptance. To accept the shadow is the most radical and powerful thing you can do. It does not mean to approve of its destructive potential or to act on every dark impulse. It means to cease the war against it. It is to look upon the anger, the fear, the envy and the sorrow within you and to say without reservation, "This too is me." This simple yet profound act of owning your entire reality is the catalyst that turns the lead of the shadow into the gold of the integrated self. Acceptance is the opposite of resignation. Resignation is a passive state of defeat, a surrender to the belief that you are hopelessly flawed. Acceptance is an active, courageous and loving embrace of your own humanity. It is the recognition that the shadow contains not just darkness, but also immense energy and life. By accepting it, you are not surrendering to your worst self. You are inviting a lost and exiled part of your soul to come home. This act of radical inclusion changes the inner chemistry. The energy that was once locked in the struggle of repression is now liberated, becoming available for conscious and creative living. This alchemical process is what allows the shadow to be civilized. A wild animal that is caged and starved becomes vicious and unpredictable. But an animal that is met with respect, understanding, and clear boundaries can become a powerful ally. When you accept your shadow, you stop treating it like a caged beast. You begin to listen to it, to understand its needs and its wisdom. In response, the shadow begins to trust the conscious ego. Its raw, primal energy no longer needs to erupt in destructive ways to be heard. It can now offer its strength and vitality to the whole personality, guided by the wisdom of the conscious mind. Through acceptance, you discover that the parts of you that you feared the most were often the most in need of love. The inner critic was trying to protect you from judgment. The rage was trying to guard your boundaries. The deep sadness was mourning a real and significant loss. By accepting these parts, you can finally offer them the compassion they have been seeking. This is the great paradox of transformation. The darkness does not disappear when you accept it. It is integrated. It becomes a source of depth, resilience, and wisdom. You do not become less of yourself. You become more of who you were meant to be all along. As acceptance deepens, a profound merging begins to occur. The rigid boundary between the conscious and the unconscious, between the persona and the shadow, starts to dissolve. It is like two separate streams, one clear and one murky, that have run parallel for miles, finally flowing into one another to form a single, richer river. The conscious mind becomes more aware of instinctual truths, and the unconscious shadow becomes more accessible to the light of awareness. Your inner world is no longer a divided kingdom, but a unified realm where all parts have a voice and a place. This is the birth of the individuated self. This merging manifests as a new sense of inner alignment. Your thoughts, feelings, and actions begin to move in greater harmony. The things you do in the outer world start to feel like a genuine expression of your inner world. The career you choose, the relationships you cultivate, the way you spend your time, all begin to reflect a deeper, more authentic truth. There is less internal friction, less of the feeling of being at odds with yourself. You are no longer driven solely by the ego's desire for success and approval, nor are you at the mercy of the shadow's unconscious whims. Instead, you are guided by a new center of gravity, the whole self. One of the most powerful signs of this merging is the transformation of your dreams and intuitions. Dreams may become less terrifying and more like helpful dialogues with the deeper parts of yourself. The menacing figures of the shadow may transform into wise guides or powerful allies. Intuition, which is the voice of the unconscious speaking to the conscious mind, becomes clearer and more reliable. You develop a gut feeling for what is right for you, a deep inner knowing that guides your decisions. You learn to trust this inner compass, for it is calibrated not just to your conscious goals, but to the total wisdom of your entire psyche. This merging of worlds brings a profound sense of authenticity. You are no longer performing a role, you are simply being. This does not mean you are always perfect or that you never feel conflict. It means that you are able to hold the conflict and the imperfection within a larger sense of wholeness. You can be both strong and vulnerable, both rational and passionate, both disciplined and spontaneous. You are no longer a collection of separate warring parts, but a complex, dynamic and unified being. You have begun to embody the wholeness that was once just a distant promise, living a life that is truly and completely your own. The shadow is the wellspring of creativity, wild, chaotic and imaginative. When we embrace our shadow, we reconnect with a deep river of creative energy. This energy infuses every aspect of life, bringing spontaneity, play and the courage to explore the unknown. True creativity is born from integrating both light and shadow within. When you face your own darkness, you see the same in others, not with judgment, but with understanding. The line between us and them dissolves. You recognize our shared humanity, the light and dark in every soul. This is true compassion, not pity, but connection. It transforms relationships, creating space for honesty and healing. By embracing your own shadow, you become a steady point of light, radiating peace and compassion to the world. The final stage of transformation is not a static endpoint, but, a new way of being in the world. It is the radiance of the whole person. Now, this is not the dazzling, perfect light of the persona, which, as we've seen, casts a dark shadow. Rather, it's a more gentle, steady and inclusive light, a bit like that of a lantern that illuminates the ground it stands on as well as the path ahead. A whole person does not pretend to have no shadow. Instead, they have integrated it so thoroughly that it no longer has autonomous, destructive power. The darkness has become part of the fuel for the light, giving it depth, warmth and authenticity. This radiance is felt by others as a kind of quiet strength and profound stability. An integrated individual has a center of gravity that is not easily shaken by external events or the opinions of others. Because they have faced their own inner demons, they are less afraid of the chaos of the world. Because they have accepted their own fallibility, they are more resilient in the face of failure. They move through life with a sense of purpose that comes not from egoic ambition, but from a deep connection to the self, the larger whole of the psyche. They are grounded, present and real. The goal of this entire journey, the great work of individuation, is to become this person. It is to become who you truly are, beyond the mask of social conditioning and beneath the terror of the repressed shadow. It is to be a being in whom the opposites are held in a creative and dynamic tension. Such a person has not eliminated their inner conflicts, but has learned to contain them, to learn from them, and to use their energy for growth. They are able to live with the paradox of being human, to be both divine and animal, both finite and infinite, both light and dark. This is the promise of embracing your shadow. The path is perilous. It demands courage, honesty, and a willingness to suffer the death of the person you thought you were. But the reward is, honestly, immeasurable. It is the gift of a second life, a life that is not lived in fearful fragmentation, but in the radiant power of your own wholeness. You stand, finally, as yourself, not a perfect being, but a complete one. Aware of the darkness that walks with you, no longer as a hidden master, but as a known and integrated companion on the path toward becoming everything you were meant to be. The journey home is a sacred pilgrimage, an act of turning inward, facing our shadows and reclaiming lost parts of ourselves. We begin fragmented, wearing masks, fearing our own darkness, but when we welcome what we've exiled, we become whole. True peace begins by ending the war within ourselves. To live fully is to embrace paradox. We are mortal, yet long for eternity, driven by instinct yet capable of reflection. Like a tree rooted in darkness and reaching for light, we grow by holding both sides. This is not weakness but strength, the art of living with honesty, curiosity and compassion. Integration is not a task to finish but a way of life. The psyche is a living mystery, always unfolding. The journey is never truly done. The horizon of the self is ever unfolding. Walk the path with courage and an open heart. The journey itself becomes the destination. If this helped, share it with someone who needs it, leave a like, and comment what you're taking forward. Subscribe for more depth psychology, and if you're ready for guided support, the online therapy link is in the description. Use Therapy 20 for 20% off. Watch the next video to keep the momentum.